Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of Shop Talk here on Grumpy Roadie. Today, we're a little short numbered on our Council of Elders. It's just Eric, Tony, and myself. And we'll be talking about how digital changed the way we do business. Let's throw it to Tony to start us off. Okay, Tony? Take it
I
away.
think I can safely say there's still plenty of grump.
I grump higher than my weight.
There you go. Hey, hello everybody or anybody that's out there. But digital, it means a lot of shit to a lot of people. We all know that. A lot of people think it means that automatically there's magic and stuff happens. No. There's still the basics, as we all know, are involved. I think I can speak very safely for the three of us here that we are not unique to have gone through the transition stage from analog to digital. And I mean like full what we see today from there was none of this. We're just, I feel honored, lucky that we were not afraid of it. Again, we're not unique, but there's many of us out. I think, again, I'm saying this for all of us, that we weren't afraid to start embracing what we saw as the digital world coming. We saw amazing things. I know I did. I can speak for me. Definitely, it was like, fuck yeah, I'm in. And even today, so I just went and looked up what was the very first, digital. Not just a channel, but kind of. So Yamaha had something called a DMP7 in 1987.
I don't even remember that one, T.
Well, do you remember a rehearsal place called? I think it was called Street Brothers, Royal York,
yes,
Shore area.
John Carr, Alan Carr.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So they had
great space.
Place, nice, exactly, really nice. We did all the Lee Aaron stuff there. He had one, so it was like basically modular stuff. So you had, a head, which is the preamp head, as we see it now, is kind of broken down to / control surface, head, a brain somewhere, analog connections to said brain, which translates the information back and forth from said control surface. I try to simplify it because I still think there's nothing really new. And this is, we were chatting a little earlier about, my comment about, the advantages of digital. The real advantage, what I always believe, was once you've taken the time-consuming time to build a show and save it, the recall is what the real advantage is, as opposed to, as any one of us went through any number of methods of how we stored a show in the analog world. Yeah, where it was paper talking into a dictaphone type audio tape recorder, little Sony unit, little circles of the dots on lining up. Everyone had a system of how to recall a board because it was very likely that you'd be sharing it, whether it was lighting or audio or anywhere in between. Once you started getting into the advent of video, there was a whole other compromise. But then, from that analog transition, I also just found recently some photos so my first, I guess, introduction to anything with the digital world and audio in the same talking was in around 1978 when I was at York University. I graduated after, but I have some photos that show me in front of, so we had a real an ARP 2600, an ARP 2500, which was the giant unit that Pete Townsend used to use. But there was a company out of England called EMS Synthi. EMS, Electronic Music Systems. So they had one of the very first 12-note sequencers. What's a sequencer? A tape recorder using digital memory.
Right.
So so there you started seeing, but we had at the same time a dip switch IMSI 8x8 computer. So it was all dip switches that you just toggled up and down to create an 8-bit computer. And we used to connect, one of my profs, we used to connect contacts to get alpha wave recordings to create music. And record it. Yeah. Okay. He was a little trippy, but
that sounds like it.
Narcotic.
Sounds like a fun person to be creative with.
Oh, there was a lot of, there was a lot of fun times. I learned a lot of stuff. There was a lot of wild stuff. But to get back, this I haven't actually strayed, even though I'm on a little tangent. But that I never was afraid, I guess, is what I'm saying. And like yourselves, and we also know many of our friends that just fought the whole digital transition in the digital world right from the beginning, and then and now are there because you've had to do it, but you have to play catch up. But that being said, on a simple level, that's what that's the crux of this. It was that change when we saw being able to do the things that we were doing before digital, now in the digital domain. Being able to save that, recall it, go to another place, and have an amazing starting point.
Right.
Eric, I'll jump over to you for a while.
And Chris, can you let Vanz in there? He's
Did he show up?
He's
trying
to get.
Yeah, sure.
He's knocking at your door, brother.
I was shuffling windows around here. Too many windows going. There we go.
Yeah.
Let him in. Hey, Vanz.
There he is. Yo to the yo, brother.
Hey, Vanz.
Hey, guys.
Sorry you had to wait, but I didn't hear you knocking. We hear you knocking, but you can't come in, buddy.
Oh, good to be here, guys.
Okay, so now that you're in, sit down. Shut up. It's my turn to talk. It was just Tony's. Now, first I'm going to talk about me, and then you're going to talk about me.
So business.
We're talking about business as usual, yes, sir. You know it. We're talking about digital and the revolution, because it really was. And in my case, I embraced it whole heart because I had figured out analog lighting, every part of it, homemade gobos, like getting waiters to change gels on floor lights, and that's when scrollers and moving lights came out. So I was down with it, and the first thing I noticed, I didn't trust it right away when DMX came out, because T, we went digital a solid 10 years before audio really went. And
Sure.
I didn't trust the mic cable. I was used to pulling 3 37-pin SOCAs from the fucking stage to front of house. And I trusted that. I understood it. And I used to do the DMX cable and the SOCA for about a month until I finally went, okay, this is stupid. It works. I realized I didn't have to understand the science behind it. I just had to understand how to manipulate it. And I got it right away, because wrapping one mic cable
Eric,
at the end of the night.
remember that comment.
Yes, sir.
Remember that comment about
Which one, T?
you just had to learn how to manipulate. You didn't have to learn.
Just learn how to manipulate it.
That's a very key
just learn
about the whole digital thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't need to learn everything about it. I mean, I teach Grand MA, and I'm going to tell you right now, I only know at best 60% of the goddamn light board. The other 40 I don't need, have never needed, will never need, don't care. So it's really about learning. It's about learning as much as you need to know to get your job done. But the biggest thing I got to tell you was weight. The difference between analog lighting and digital lighting, the weight of my entire system went down 4/5. No, the SOCA was gone. The feeder. I used to, when it really got, LEDs came in, I was using PA Plus as my audio supplier for a couple of years. I wouldn't bring a lighting distro. I'd make them bring the distro, and I'd plug the light rig into the convenience outlets. There was 3 or 4 on that old PA Plus yellow double rack unit. That was my entire light rig for a concert. It saved on copper. It saved in truck. It saved in money. And analog lighting was run fader up, get one light. Digital lighting was just like a party in your face. Like, what do you want it to do? It just exploded the capabilities of control. And we've all seen pictures of the early Pink Floyd shows, like those dimmer beaches that would just go on down the VOM and into the truck ramp with cable. And now it's a couple of little half SKB racks with some data distribution nodes in it. So it's really, really made the rig smaller. And I got to buy gear again because I used to own analog gear. Then I wanted to be a designer and I didn't want to own all this heavy shit. So I got rid of it all for about 15 years. When digital really kicked in, it allowed me to buy quality gear that didn't require heavy cables to operate. And it would last a lot longer than the stuff did. So I, just like you, Tone, I really embraced it. It was a fabulous changeover. I'm glad I understand analog, and I'm glad I understand digital. The kids today, they don't really need to know analog anymore. Only the small specialists are going to want to understand.
Yeah, sadly, it's not only kids.
Yeah, true enough.
And you even mentioned that we all know techs that didn't jump on this bandwagon, and they did get left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, you know, I won't say that some of them didn't fall by the wayside, but
but they carved out the niche for themselves, you know. They kind of made that handicap into their signature card and kind of specialized in the small chunk of remaining analog gigs or situations, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of old guys, you think the general even knows there's an internet yet? Somebody's got to throw a name out there.
Because I don't know if Andy and Chris, do you and Vanz, do you know Andy Linden?
I've heard the name. I don't think I've met him before. No.
I've heard the name. I don't know if I've met him before, but I can't put the face in the name.
Well, that's who the general is.
Okay.
That's the general.
I
started with him too. I owe him a lot because I was Lee Aaron's dimmer tech back in the day, and when you were doing the front of house thing, we toured. You and I met when we were almost just out of our teens on the Body Rock tour.
Yeah.
With Lee.
Believe it or not, I started late, so I was almost I was already almost 30-ish when I did that.
Body Rock tour.
I started
like 86.
Yeah.
But
right.
Andy Linden was in a great LD. I don't know if he's still in the business. I hope he still is. I toured with him.
Metalworks, I believe. I don't go out there much, but I think
I don't think he's there anymore.
He's back.
Oh yeah? Okay, never mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, Vaughn's, let's skip past you and go to somebody else. No.
Goodness, I like the idea.
There he goes.
So what, did you play with your new toys or what?
Do you like my new webcam? Does it look great?
Well, you look a little dark and mystical there. I totally expect you to start speaking.
Whoa, dude,
I am dark.
That's racist.
That is racist. I'm out.
Well, not really, because I can't make up my mind if he's red or white. You know what I mean? So
I'm actually. I got a little bit of kind of everything in me.
I was gonna say you're kind of multicultural and
Yes, I am exactly. There, so. I'm Canada for sure.
Yeah, as Canadian as you can possibly look.
For me, the whole digital thing, I remember going kicking and screaming. I wasn't like Eric at all. I didn't, it took me a while to kind of want to embrace it and figure out that, it was a better option than analog. The gig that got me to kind of make that transition, and it was over a few years, was a gig that we used to do for one of the larger banks. And we'd, I don't want to brag about where we were, but we were in Hawaii doing this gig, and we would do it every few years. It would be coming back to Hawaii. And there was a guy, his name was Rick, that worked for the audio supplier. And when we first met, I, demanded the large Midas console that they had. And then he brought me we were talking on the phone, and he said, you should try these new digital consoles. They're really good. I'm like, no, I like, I was set in my ways. I had a certain thing that kind of worked for corporate the way I like to go. And I didn't want to, fuck around with that. But he's like, okay, how about we do like a hybrid of that? right? I'm like, okay, I'll take your console, but I want my 31 band EQs. I got to have that rack there, man. I need something tactile. I need to know
I
that
can't
I'm
live
doing
without
something.
Clark.
You can't-
So he agreed. So he agreed to that, and I showed up, and there you go. There was my EQs. But then he showed me. He goes, well, look at this, man. He goes, all these racks and stuff here, and I look, that all can be here if you want. I'm like, well, you know what? That'll be next year. So then the following year, I went right in, jumped right in, and I never looked back after that. So that was a major thing. And like Eric was saying, the weight of everything comes down, the size of everything comes down. You have to learn the whole layering thing. It's not all spread out there for you. You have to be able to manipulate menus and stuff like that. So that was a learning curve. But since then, like Eric was saying, and probably the other guys too, is that it opened up a whole new world for us that didn't exist. Like what's available to us now for the money was something that would have been completely out of our reality, especially for ownership.
Right.
Never mind actually sitting behind the thing. Owning something like that was like, what? I can, us engineers, we rarely have, $60,000 to $100,000 kicking around for a console. But now that kind of stuff's, within reach, and only that, the hybrid of, or the coming of the recording world.
Oh, Vanz just kind of.
All that's available to us as well, which is amazing.
Ah, there we go. He's back.
Locked up there for a minute.
Oh, did I? Did you hear my voice? Where did I leave off?
Great arm.
With a nice dab kind of pose, you were doing one of these kind of, yeah.
Did I mention the plugins? Did you lose me there?
That's right.
Yes.
You're locked up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was just talking about how the recording world has also entered our world now too, which I think is really cool with Waves plugins. I purchased the Waves Sound Grid, which allows me to have all that stuff that the pro recording people have at their fingertips. Now, I can have a Uri 1176 on every single channel if I want to.
Yeah. Isn't that great that you can use like the same hardware on your live show as you do in your home studio, and all it needs is a USB key to do that?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing, man.
It's pretty crazy if you think about it,
The next big thing for me in the digital world that came in was the Dugan plugin. Does anybody know what the Dan Dugan, my hero? For those who don't know, he gave us the Dugan Auto Mixer, which makes, especially in corporate, man, I'm telling you, it put a lot of life. I'm enjoying a lot more longevity because of that, because one of the most stressful things that we get put into as corporate AV guys is, like a panel of like 8 or more people on lavaliers, and how to manage that, and who's speaking. And, before it was what I called a panel whack-a-mole, which is you got to bring all your faders up, and then you just kind of, who's that guy? Is this guy, that guy, this guy? Right? So now with that plugin or the hardware version of that, we can kind of rest easy. We can worry about, managing the tone of everything and volume, but not have to worry about missing cues and worrying about feedback and stuff like that. It kind of made, it brought like a studio environment. It removed the live part out of mixing that kind of thing, which was, like I said, very, very stressful, and kept us up, a lot of us up at night, wondering if it was going to work. I've done gigs with 16 labs and 8 handhelds live simultaneously for some of these bigger, gigs, and I tell you, man, it just was like just sweating the entire time. And now with this, now you can kind of sit back and not have to worry about it as much. And I'm thankful for that. And I actually got to thank the man. I went to one of the trade shows and I met Dan Dugan. I thanked him. I said, man, you've helped a lot of people, live longer, man, because the stress that this thing has alleviated, it's amazing. But I can't look back now. Now we just laugh. We just laugh at, you see, the guy from AC/DC still uses a big Midas console. I just laugh. I was like, the trade-off is like, why would you bother? It's like, there's so many.
He
He
does
probably got his faders glued into AC/DC sound, and because they've been having the same setup and sound for the last 30 years, he hasn't touched those knobs ever.
Well, you look at like Chris Lord-Alge in his studio. He's like got like things permanently into his board, and it's set at at settings that he hasn't changed.
Yeah,
he just plugs it into a bass channel or whatever like that, and it sounds great, right?
But that kind of stuff is, remember, we're talking about a whole other different level of operation, because he can do that, Alge could do that because he does have 16 LA4s.
Yes, exactly.
You've
seen the wall of
and he knows that he tried them all, and that one is the one that did sound best with the
yeah, exactly. He's gone through all 8 of them. He knows that one sounds good on kick, and that one
just need to bring up the AC/DC thing now. Yes, he's back out with an old Midas Pro which you've had the pleasure, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
But he had the thing, again, budget is what allows you to do it. The entire console was completely recapped, repotted. Anything that was noisy was replaced with original parts.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it's like, I mean, we, people like myself don't have the luxury of having somebody put all that stuff together for us, insert it all and all that. I mean, that was, and I talk about points of failure with all the inserting stuff. I mean, we've all been there when an insert goes and then, all hell breaks loose. So to not have that to worry about too is another amazing. I mean, ease of setup. Obviously, you can save things. If you've done that show last year, you can just bring it up as a or just have a default thing that brings it up as a starting point for any gig that you're doing, or if you've got a if that you've got a beta 52 on the kick, that this particular setting sounds good on that as a starting point. You don't have to start from scratch every single time, and then you can travel with that too. If you're on a tour with a band or whatever, you can take that anywhere you want, and this life is easier, man. I just love it. I said I would never go back to analog. Like I said, I love the sound of it, and everybody thinks it's better or whatever. It's like, I don't know, the trade-off, and all that other stuff is, I think digital's the winner for me anyway. Like I said, if someone was going to set all that stuff up, great. But I like having it all at your fingertips too is an amazing thing. Instead of having to reach over here, like you can always keep your focus there, listening all the time, and not have to worry about going over here and fucking around.
That's a very good point.
Or behind you. Like, I mean, I've seen like what's his name, Scoville, when he was touring with Rush. Christ, he had like same thing, man. Right, like I like Chris Lord-Alge's rig. He had like racks of stuff behind him. How do you stay in the game? Mixing while you're there bugging around, where you literally have to get out of your chair, go back there, and play with the knobs.
I need to ask you a question, Vanz. Did he succeed at doing the show? And did he succeed at doing the show? And every moment was there.
Yeah.
So that's
definitely.
how.
Yeah, I mean, even Robert Scoville's changed, right? It's
just all a matter of reference. Remembering that when you leave your point of reference, don't fuck with things. Go do what you got to do and come back.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like don't just because you moved all of a sudden go, oh shit, I got to change this now. No, you don't. Mm-hmm. You went to do something. Do the delay thing. Do the compression.
Finish the job.
Do the hit. Do the whatever job you're meant to do. That's how you do it. That's how those guys do it. So yes, digital's definitely allowed us, you missed a little thing I said is like, once you built the show and saved it, there's, to me, the biggest advantage of the digital domain is the recall.
Yes, definitely. Right. And you get to do that. Like, I mean, I've never did tour with anybody major enough to have rehearsals where you can then have the audio console there and then work on your mix during the rehearsal, you know. That's a great thing to be able to do, because then you're ready to go, man. It's not, you don't have to start from scratch, like kick, you know, it's none of that. I mean, there's no one even does that. And I talked to Robert Scoville too about doing Tom Petty, you know, rest in peace. And he said that the band rarely shows up for sound check anymore. You know, it's like, it's changed the world for the musicians as well. It's like, you know, they're on at 8 o'clock. They're showing up. They're not at the venue at 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm not talking about everybody. I mean, this is a different story.
Yeah,
you know, they're showing up at 7:30.
You can't really compare the Heartbreakers to about 99.9.
No, because their road crew's doing the sound check plays better than 60% of the bands that's out there. You know what I mean?
They sound better than 99%.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's saying, when he does get the band up there, when he did get Tom Petty his band up there, they didn't even play any Tom Petty songs. They're like playing Zeppelin and stuff like that. I think, you know, they knew they were going to be playing Petty songs all night. Like, why do you want to do that for the sound check? Let's do something more interesting.
That's when you know you have a pro. They don't need to rehearse during sound check. That's just it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's right. It's a sound check, not a fucking rehearsal.
Not a rehearsal.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, let me just cut in here for a second, because I want to get to video real quick, because in video, unlike audio and lighting, digital made a huge difference for quality of what we could deliver, right? Like back in the analog days, I remember when I first started touring with projectors, getting a clean signal in a rig mounted projector, free from hum and noise and signal rolls, required black magic, like literally voodoo, and you had to sacrifice stagehands and stuff like that to make that happen, you know.
Chris, a quick question.
Yeah.
The hum, was it inducing like a visible
the
there's
roll
bars, you know.
There's roll. Yeah, that was a very common one, right? Which are usually grounding hums and stuff like that. So there's various different artifacts that the analog line would pick up, running side by side with different power lines that were still analog lighting loaded, you know, different speaker lines that were driving bass speakers, you know, and what have you not. So it wasn't surprising that those sensitive analog lines would pick up a whole bunch of issues, right? Like, and just getting a pair of video cameras matched to look the same when back in the analog days was like a day's work by itself. Just the color, timing, and anyways, it was a nightmare. So when digital came around, it allowed us to get actually really crystal clear pictures out to the projectors, which ended up being much smaller and lighter, like everything else in digital, right? Than the old analog CRT multi-gun.
It also allowed you to get more sleep.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, I don't know how many tours I spent 3 or 4 hours in a harness under a truss with a tweaker in my hand in absolute darkness, trying to tweak 6 guns of a CRT projector.
Well, Eric was mentioning that last time we spoke, and you know,
video focus.
Dark time.
Yeah. Like, I literally had people cover up the
hours.
exit lights.
Yeah.
I had to get the exit lights covered up so I could actually align the convergence of my projectors, right? Because I could, under ideal circumstances, I managed to squeeze about 800 lumen out of those 6 guns if I got them perfectly dialed in. And
well, you tell the kids today, they won't believe you.
No, nowadays they pick up their 3M projector and press auto setup, you know, and the thing just does its crap on the table, you know. So yeah, so definitely things have gotten a lot easier to handle. Integrating computers. Actually, the reason I ended up doing video is because I was originally audio guy. I ended up doing video because I helped a touring video guy get his Amiga tied into his video system. I was actually there delivering a delay line. They ordered a whole bunch of Apogee in the company I worked for. We had a whole bunch of 3x3s. So I was just pushing 3x3s by, looking at this guy struggling with his Amiga 500. And the 5th time I walked over there, I just reached over there, hey, dude, try this, click, 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 and it solved his problem, right? He just basically had picked the wrong Genlock reference input or whatever it was. I can't remember. And he just looks at me and says, dude, do you know video? I said, no, you know, I'm kind of like an audio guy. He says, yeah, but you know this? And I'm like, yeah, I know computers pretty well. He was like, what are you doing the next 3 months? And before I knew it, I was on the bus, right, doing video. So, yeah, but that was still like in the analog days, right? And the transition to the digital days came almost seamless, because first you got more and more computers as sources, that were still converted into analog with 5-wire interfaces and what have you not, going into switchers that are basically old TV broadcast stuff and weren't roadworthy at all. You'd look at those things crooked and they'd fall apart, like much less roll them up and down a ramp on a truck. So you'd have to literally put your gear back together again at every setup, because it had just shaken itself apart, right? Just to keep it working. So, and nowadays you pull out your laptop, you plug in your little Blackmagic switcher, plug in your HDMI line to the projector, and you're good to go.
I can even do it.
That's
not easy.
Well, yeah, a lot of it is, and a lot of it just appears deceptively so, like in anything, It looks easy to do it if you watch somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's usually, I think that goes for all of our stuff, like if somebody watches us and we know what we're doing, then it looks like we're doing it in our sleep.
I've done a lot of that, actually.
Well, yeah, we all have. I just didn't want to come out and say it like
on
that,
corporate shows.
Is there any other way to do long corporate shows and survive?
I know I've made it through some. It's like, I don't know. I can't remember what I did. I don't remember the show. What happened?
Yeah.
Or actually, there's a couple of stories about the old Frischkorn days where the crew and the audience wakes up to like an hour-long Betacam roll of a video, and wakes up to white noise like shh. And everybody kind of wakes up after that. Oh my God, the video's done. The audience wakes up, the crew wakes up. Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, if you're all on the same schedule, it's not a problem, right? If
Yes.
everybody wakes up at the same time, that's perfect. It's like coming out of hibernation when you're in a spacecraft in hypersleep and you reach your destination and you wake everybody up again.
Speaking of digital, what do you got behind you there, T? What do you got? What console is that behind you?
That's the PreSonus Studio.
Okay.
My buddy is the Jam Ericsson Music Pro Audio rep.
Mm-hmm.
If any of you know Warren Cooper at all?
No.
Anyways, Focusrite, PreSonus, a bunch of other stuff. So I get to basically, I do clinics, but instead of getting paid, I take products.
Gear.
Mm-hmm. So it's Audio Technica. But I do clinics for them, right? So, just you talked earlier about, this is kind of why I did it this as well. It's like the whole digital thing. Right now, this is, that desk is 24 faders up. You can do 24 VCAs, 16, there's 4 internal effects, but there's 16 aux outputs that can be either mono, stereo. The first 8 are XLR, you know what I mean? Like, it's really well set up. Mm-hmm. You can add the expander unit, basically a stage box, to make it a 32 input desk, okay? This desk, as you see right there, I think retails for somewhere around $3,000, okay? This is what we were talking about earlier. Absolutely, do I know the difference of if I had a Midas 24 channel console or anything else or something like this, or what I just programmed this? I just programmed an offline build, and this ties into your whole thing of the digital technology, storing, building. I just built a show on the offline editor for a Pro X. I was supposed to go out on a tour carrying a Midas Pro X. But this, it offers the same, in essence, the exact same things that you have. It's got Neve channel plugins now that come as part of the package. Like they're clones of an EQ channel, Pultec EQs, LA2, like the classic gear that you think of. And then you're right, man. It's like you see it. It's hard not to go there now and want to use it, you still have to really be aware of the latency issues and things like that. Once you start stacking, blah, 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 there's a lot of nitty gritty detail that goes with understanding the digital. But this, it also, like, basically with one USB cable, you multi-track in both both directions for recording and playback.
I know that still boggles my mind. I mean,
And it's 24-bit. I can do 48. It's 24-bit 48K.
Yeah.
And it's one USB cable, and you can do it to the SD card if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You just go on each channel, then you switch it from the, basically it automatically will, you just switch it to the other way you want.
Things have gotten so easy. I just was thinking back about, like, my first demo I recorded with my friends in '86. We recorded on 2 ADATs that we synced up to an Atari ST with a Steinberg Uniter timing interface.
Luxury.
I know that, and we were so state of the art, high end, right? We thought we were like pushing the boundaries of home recording because we were literally the first ones that recorded in digital.
Mm.
Everybody else was, doing their little Tascam 238, 8 tracks and whatever else. And we said, no, we got a digital all the way, and we can burn them to CD now. I got a CD burner. I can even make my own CDs. Yay! And 1 out of 3 actually turned out playable. The other 2 burns failed, but that was the day.
Oh yeah, I went along with I think Eric, you and I probably were both a couple of those guys, because I know that as you and I would run into each other over the years, you'd go, "Hey, check this out," or I'd go, "Hey, check this out," and
check this out.
Whether it was a CD burner or a new LED stick or a new thing or a new controller, and then suddenly you're going, yeah, boy, we paid a lot for that shit when it first came out.
Oh man. I think of certain pieces of gear.
I just need to say, I can proudly say I was the first person in North America to personally own a Yamaha Rev7.
Oh, yeah. That was a great unit. Yep.
Yeah, we had one in our front of house rack too.
$2,000 for it.
Yeah.
But I had it for almost a year before anyone else had one.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to have this little Panasonic drum machine that you could just hit the snare. So my girlfriend I drove her nuts. I would just be sitting there, program. I'm listening to shit, but it just sounds weird. It all sounds bad. What are you doing? I'm listening. And then you get off. What?
Oh, yeah. That reminds me of that old Boss Doctor rhythm. I think that looked like a little calculator, Casio kind of thing, but they actually were used in so many productions back in the day. You'd be surprised how many albums you can hear those on, especially in the pop and new wave kind of department.
I think we all seem to have had pretty much a similar experience, at least for those of us that adopted the digital world.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have an absolute digital hater in the round, just kind of for the chastising, because it would have been fun to say, like, we told you so.
I'm a very good devil's advocate of it, because as much as it's a great tool, when it goes bad, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're like, there's no swapping a channel. There's no, hey, I don't need the little blinky light in channel 94.
Yeah, but and also what I think is an important thing not to forget, that at the end of the day, especially what you guys are doing, audio is at its source and at its destination an analog event.
Okay. So
right? I mean, pretty much anything that we perceive, right?
So is video.
I agree. I totally agree. I was just like narrowing on this one example, for the sake of the conversation. So basically, knowing about the analog world or physics of analog and signal propagation in the analog helps you even in the digital world, because you understand those two tail and nose ends of your signal chain, which are still analog. Right?
Yeah.
So I would argue having a solid understanding of the analog versus not will still help.
Yeah. Sadly, I find, maybe you'll all agree with me, is once they started including, the quick start instructions, and they started making gear that really, if you follow the quick start instructions, it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
You can take it out of the box, boink, plug it in, follow these quick start instructions, and you need to know nothing.
Yeah, that's the problem right there. You're allowed to jump over massive steps in your
success without knowledge,
in your own career, and your own evolution as a technician, and it comes back to bite you in the ass, because you have to kind of it's like you just have to jump here. You don't have to understand how you got from here to here. And like with all the presets and stuff like that, people don't have to worry about that. It's like, oh, here's a kick sound. I'll just go, oh, look at that, sounds great. Okay, next. They don't understand what has happened, what's transpired, and why it sounds great.
That's kind of what I was getting to. Because in the beginning, it's an analog event. That you have to then capture and process digitally and turn back into an analog event for the viewer or listener, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't understand what's happening there, and what's, like you said, like Vanz said, what's just basically going on with your sound or your signal or whatever it is, then all the digital processing in the world is not going to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I believe some famous people quoted it as shit in,
shit out. Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite is you can't shine a turd.
Actually, you can, though. It's just a question of temperature. The Mythbusters proved that if you deep freeze it cold enough, you actually can polish it.
You actually can polish it.
Yeah, I think that you got to freeze it down to like minus 180 Celsius or something like that. So, but it's possible. So we have to kind of back off on that statement, because it's no.
Oh, okay.
But there was a limit, though, on how much turd buffing you could do before the sheer friction of polishing said turd would indeed warm up the turd, thus getting your cloth all dirty. So
so you have to also make sure you have a cold environment where you do the polishing. It's a rather involved process.
Turds it's a fucking dumb analogy, is what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very dumb analogy.
Yeah,
but
Tony, you've been doing it for years. We've all been doing it for years.
Recall, and the digital world allowed you to have this instant recall of a show from last night or the show the night before. But what happened to me was every light board was different. So there was a period in my life that I was traveling with those 3-point, the floppy disks. I needed discs for Compulite, Grand MA, Hog, and maybe Avo. So 4 different manufacturers. And then 4 different light rigs, because I might be on a Hog with Verilight one night. Mm-hmm. So these discs that I was traveling with, I stopped and I started to learn how to program really fast, as opposed to wanking and making your screens all look beautiful and stuff. I'm like, people ask me, how long does it take to do your show? 45 minutes.
What up, Tony?
Eric, I'm the same, because this is sort of ties into like the transition into digital also came with all its slow pokes. The fact that once they started adding, the fact that you could name stuff on a channel strip and stuff, that's great. However, as I used to say to many people in a festival situation, hey,
it's not billable.
The 4.5 minutes you're using to type in my names, I want those to sound check. Go away.
Mm-hmm.
And scratch the 3 minutes you waste on assigning colors to the channels too.
Exactly. So
pretty icons. And
once stuff. This is where where it goes to is like, absolutely. If I have time in advance to build a show, and I have the time to sit and do all those little luxury items that do not in any way, shape, or form affect my job.
Yeah, exactly. The aesthetics. That's something I learned from Perry DeZera early on too.
Do that.
I was concentrating too much on making every single cable look pretty. And he said, once again, it's like, let's just get this fucking thing up, man. You know, let's get stuff plugged in. If we have time, then we'll go around and tidy and stuff like that. But in the meantime, we've got a band that's showing up in 10 minutes. It's like, you need to mic this drum kit. We need to mic all these other instruments, get these monitors working. So stop doing what you're doing. Don't fixate on cable management right now. Just get shit done. Make time for that later.
I'm really glad you said that, Vanz, because if many more people took that exactly what you just said and applied it to digital technology and the digital domain, they also would get further faster.
Yeah, it's don't use it as a crutch. You know, like for me, the recall thing. Like it's same thing. It's like you're in the audio world. You know, we get thrown on like there's a Yamaha thing and and a Digico console and there's a freaking a Behringer, a Midas. There's like all these different Soundcraft. You have to learn all this stuff. Don't
forget Peavey. You didn't mention Peavey, right? Doesn't Peavey make a board? You can put like a
Allen and Heath.
Yeah,
Allen and Heath.
No, you can put
exactly.
You can put a 5.
You have them all now.
They use a 5-inch floppy disk.
I was never there. When digital came out for audio, we were already at the thumb drive.
So right? You missed my 1987.
Or PCM cards.
No.
PCM CIA.
There was no storage except for you. Basically, it had a RAM buffer of 8 megabytes in an original console called a Yamaha DMP7. Mm-hmm. All you could save was, there were no plugins. There was, again, crazy shit. Look it up if you ever really want to.
Yeah, I worked with that console once. It was an installation in a house gig that I had to do way back in the day. Wasn't really the most comfortable and intuitive console, let's put it that way.
Chris,
what was the first digital console you sat behind, T?
That's it.
That was it?
Called the Yamaha DMP7 1987.
Mine was the which was it? The PM. What was the first big Yamaha console? I can't remember it.
PM1D and then the 5D.
Yeah, the 5D.
1D and 5D.
The 5D is the first one I sat behind. And then after that, Digico and stuff like that. But yeah.
Believe it or not, like that's the PM5D is already probably close to almost 15 years after that first one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really back there.
Yeah.
Now my first digital soundboard is my current Yamaha TF1 that I have in my studio. And when I researched small studio boards, it was Mackie, Behringer, or Yamaha. Yeah. And because I have so much love for the Tuning Fork Corporation, I've almost killed myself several times on their motorcycles. I loves me a fucking Yamaha motorcycle. And I love all Yamaha gear. I just love Yamaha gear. All of it. It's a great corporation.
Yeah.
They make great gear. Of all the basses I own a $2,300 Rickenbacker. My $200 Yamaha is the best sounding and the lightest. Kicked ass. It just fucking sounds great. Recording sounds great live. Doesn't weigh as much as a Ricky. God bless it. But my TF1 is my first digital board. I was a pure analog sound man up until one day.
What was your first digital lighting desk? Would it have been a Hawk?
The Animator. I adopted early. I went to the CompuLight Animator. The minute that son of a bitch hit Canadian shores, because it was me, Steve Plotkin.
I did a bunch of theater audio as well, right? So I was getting exposed to the first Strand digital consoles and the shit like that, all these prototypes and stuff like that. Yeah. I feel very fortunate over my career.
See, over in Europe where I was living and touring at the time, the first digital lighting console I ever came in contact with a Komar, NS16, I believe it was basically like a Leprechaun. It's a straight on 16 channel DMX. brand new thing, right? We had to get all new dimmers and all that crap.
Yeah.
And that must have been probably around 88, 89, I would say. Approximately.
It's all about control.
Well, I love my digital board because I am an audio snob, but I'm also a convenience snob. So in my old studio downtown, one day I walked down my stairs in the morning and all I could hear was the hiss emanating from my house PA system, because it was this rack of analog gear and it was all torqued up a little bit on the gain, so it was just like ready to roar, but even in dead silence. And then I snapped. I went, that's it. I'm fucking done with analog audio gear. And I had brought my drummer neighbor over, and I said, $500 every piece of gear leaves my studio, on the condition it never comes back. The only thing I kept was the Yamaha SPX 90 because
oh yeah,
I love
course.
SPX 90.
Yeah.
And it's got my. You got one down there? Yeah. Yeah.
There's my. That's the first piece of gear I ever bought, which is a Roland SD.
Is that a Roland SD 3000? Yes, brother.
Nice.
With
that is a fabulous delay. The fabulous delay.
With the tap pedal.
Nice.
Awesome.
What?
And my original Lexicon PCM 70.
Yikes.
Yeah, okay.
Talking about Lexicon, Tony, I got something for you. I'm not sure if you can figure out what this is. Let me just.
Holy,
I'm
going to throw up.
Holy shit. Speaking of mushrooms, they're starting to really kick in right now on me.
Well, that's because I'm still set to
go.
the green screen thing. Hang on, I got to turn off the green screen.
Being a TC Electronics unit.
No, it's a Lexicon Very Speech Model 26.
Say what now?
It's
Never heard of
an
it.
analog pitch shifter.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh.
And right underneath it is an old Yamaha RM50
rhythm
module.
So that unit, that Lexicon unit, absolutely, it's a time stretcher, but it's a digital unit.
Yeah, exactly. It was the first digital unit basically that wasn't tape based, and that could actually do a pitch shift in real time.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, for the day, it was pretty revolutionary.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure I'm not unique by any means, but just I was many guys I met along the way. Like I met this guitar player who showed up one day and he had this Eventide phase shifter.
Okay, I remember those.
This is so I started doing sound in 1980. So in 1981, I met him. That thing cost $3,000 in 1981. But the sound of that phase shifter, and then you can now, and the reason I bring this up is because you've mentioned, Vanz, the whole plugins. If you go, Eventide now has their set of vintage plugins. So you can get the Eventide flanger, the Eventide harmonics, and Eventide, basically they're Eventide digital clock company. So they are still by far one of the most highest resolution in any of the processing companies. I'm way into all this shit. I love it. But Eventide, their resolution.
We use them in video as well for time code
generators. Because their timing clocks are high. Everyone uses pretty much an Eventide clock, no matter what their everything else is. The clock is probably an Eventide clock in it.
I was going to mention another great thing about the digital realm is that is the choice now, which could be a good. There's pros and cons to that. Eric and I were just talking about that today. It's like, I said, hey, maybe you should get some plugins and stuff like that. It's like, no, like. You'll find that when you got too much, then that ends up being part of your gig. Is just like choosing which one you're going to use. I'm talking about more of in the recording world, but to have less choice is actually a good thing.
Absolutely.
Right. But remember back in the day, I mean, what was luxury back then? If I had 8 comps, I thought I'd gone to heaven.
What?
8 comps.
Four was I think the most I ever got.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that? But
Yeah.
now, right now, you can have a comp on every channel, every output. It's like I just put comps on everything. Even just like I just call it utility, is where it's like I just engage it and just bring it towards just kind of just touching it.
Yeah, and
just leave
side
it.
chaining has gotten so easy as well.
Yeah.
Like
I
side
know, man.
chaining,
I
it
put a
used to
comp
be a
on this
pain
beer.
in the ass to get that right.
I never did side
Limiter
chaining
on that.
in the analog world, man.
Yeah, I
Much
avoided it like the devil avoids fire water.
Put a
You know?
limiter on that.
Yeah, limiter, compressor.
you need a limiter.
Reverb. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all kind of. I mean, we don't need to go on too much further in terms, but we all seem to have gratefully had a good experience, because definitely in some of the stuff, there's digital horror stories. Having been there,
Yeah.
I mean, because I knew all the Celine Dion guys. So here's where, the only thing that saved them when they went digital was the fact that money wasn't an object. So when they switched over, there was a Soundcraft made a console called the Broadway, which was basically a 64 in by 64 out matrix, but a big ass Soundcraft. The VI series is what came out of all of that eventually. But you had to bring, okay, so the head amps are at stage. Any inserts were at stage. So if you wanted to do inserts, you had to run a 52 pair analog snake in both directions so that you could do inserts, because it all had to go to the control rack, which lived
Stage box.
Yeah.
Yes. So
You'd have to let your monitor guy control all your inserts.
Yes.
And do that by intercom.
Yeah. And then, but you had to have two of each of the desks because you couldn't rely on them.
Mm-hmm.
And then their entire show ran on a backup of Yamaha PM 2000s, and they still kept two Midas Heritage consoles just in case.
Nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you
That's
said,
how
if
money.
you got the money, why not? I would.
No, but that's how little people trusted it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know the
So
lighting
true.
world tends to have a main and a backup. I never have digital audio. We never have a backup. We always just make fun of you guys because that.
Yeah, I mean,
backup.
digital in general, I think that's a good point, has made gear a lot more reliable, and I guess maybe a lot less sensitive to road weariness. Maybe is probably a better way to look at it. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to kind of figure out, because there is clearly a noticeable behavior difference. People don't bring as many backups as they used to in the analog days. So on some subconscious level, there must be a higher confidence in the gear.
Well, okay. And I think Eric, maybe let me. I'll be quick. Chris, it's because at the lower to middle price stuff, they've made it so you can drop it off a building. There's not a lot in there, but once you get into the high end stuff and Vanz, maybe you see it on the really big corporate shows, you still can't beat it up.
No, I mean, obviously you can't beat it up, but it's it's been designed with the experience of roadworthiness in mind from the get-go. Not like the old theater stuff that we used to have to take on the road that wasn't meant for that.
Absolutely, but once you get into the biggest, like all the really big, like Digicos, all the big digi designs, the same issue is still there.
Right. Fair enough.
The cards shift. The circuits get messed up. The logic boards fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is impervious. We all know that. I think we can all agree on that. It's just a question of why do we bring less backups? If the gear is not more reliable, do we just perceive it as more reliable, or why do we?
I think it's a little column A, a little column B. I think on that, and it's money. And it was Christy Lights that started the whole backup console thing with the very first digital light boards.
Yeah.
And the reason they did it was because so many lighting operators were fucktards that they would get into the code and do their show and bury it and freak out and call the shop. Send another board. This one's fucked. No, you just buried it, right?
Right.
So the backup console became a way for Christie Lights to guarantee the success of the show. Really
Yeah.
big picture thinking, right?
Fair
Great
enough,
idea. And then many years later, Louis said, well, you should, if you want 2 boards, pay for it. If you go to audio and you want 2 PM3Ks, you're going to pay for 2 3Ks. Why should I give you 2 hogs for the price of 1? I'm like, well, because you started the policy, asshole. But I could totally see his point. But what happened right after that, we got into laptop backup. And for probably almost 15 years now, I've been running a system with a live laptop with my light board as a catch-all backup, so that if my board ever did touch wood, shat itself in the middle of the show, I still had a laptop with the operating system connected to the rig, which would automatically catch it. Now, you're running a show on a laptop, not on a light board. But you also don't have to go to your client and say, dude, it's over.
Yeah, you
And
actually
that
are
night,
still running a show. That's the most important thing, right?
I ran an award show in a band with a mouse on my laptop the night one of my main light boards died. And my client, Jim Fairhart, he was trying to talk to me. And my assistant at the time just looked over at him and said, dude, I don't think you should talk to him for the rest of the show. Because I was zoned. I mean, I got to do a major show. Instead of having all the buttons, I had got one mouse click at a time. Think wisely, grasshopper.
Okay.
Yeah, I had almost the same kind. Okay,
I got through the show. The show. And that was a Saturday night. I did my research on Sunday, and on Wednesday I bought a Grand MA. It was just like, you know,
Eric,
do what you gotta do.
Eric, you just brought up something that was none of us really have mentioned. It was a digital nightmare. So, cons of the digital domain and the digital technology that exists. So, Vanz,
I was actually going to just bring a story up with that, because it's connecting to what Eric just said, because I had a similar experience in 2015 at the Pan Am Games. I had 3 stages with 13 different LED screens covered over 3 stages, and everything ran from this big Grass Valley broadcast video switcher that was doing all the matrix routing and everything, and the thing started acting up. So I called the shop, said, guys, order me another console. This thing is acting up. I don't know if it's going to boot up the next couple of days. And get me a laptop here so I can have a laptop backup, so I can at least trigger the presets in the matrix if the console goes down, so I can still keep running the show. And sure enough, we set that up. Sure enough, the next day, the switcher went down. They couldn't get a new console in time because it was on its way from Frisco or whatever. And I had to run the show off of a laptop. Like a really complex multi-ME, multi-layer show, that was going here and there. And we managed to pull it off without having to, like Eric said, without having to go to the client and says, hey, dude, I'm sorry, we're done.
Yeah.
Right? The client never even noticed anything was wrong,
My client noticed.
Yeah.
My client noticed what was going on, but gave me the respect to just kind of, okay, you go do your thing and don't even fucking talk to me. I'm just going to follow the deck and try to light what you got going on. But I can't take any input now because every synapse is now into that laptop and the stage trying to get through.
Well, exactly, because then you're utilizing your brain right to work with that workaround.
I carried that CompuLight light board with me for 9 years around North America. And that was the night it died. And I had the laptop backup set up every night because I'm a freaking Boy Scout. And even on my Grand MA, my wing setup, I run a laptop backup. Now, touch wood, it's German, and it'll never fail. But the night it does, I'm not going to have to look to my client and go, you know what, that invoice I sent you, it's no good. Tear it up. Your money's no good. I have no show for you tonight. Right? That is the ultimate, for me, that's the horror. That's the horror of providing gear and then it coming into a full stop mode. So as far as backup goes, you do what you can to the best of your ability and your client's budget. No amount of backup is too much. No amount of safety. It's all good. It's all good. And the minute you start to slack off, I don't feel like setting that up tonight, is the minute the devil's going to come and is going to come for you. That
I totally
he's going to
agree.
come, and
Always.
you're not going to be prepared, right? You're not going to be prepared, and you're going to look like a mook. So back up always, right?
Yeah.
Always.
I've been lucky enough to have. I don't really have a nightmare story in the digital world anyway. Well, the closest.
Oh man,
I know you got
I
probably
got tons.
tons.
I got tons of stories about you.
The only time I ever buggered up in the digital world is that was my own fault. It wasn't a failure on the part of the equipment. Was I just that instead of save, I did a load, right? So I was supposed to save something I've been working on for a few hours and doing a rehearsal, and then I loaded something accidentally, and all my work was gone. And I just had to start again. But it wasn't like this was during the rehearsal time, so I had the time to rebuild everything and start from scratch. But
and you get faster every time you rebuild the show.
Yeah, and that was on a 5D,
True.
right? With the PCMIA cards and stuff like that.
Yeah. So recently, and this was within the last year. So this comes down to a con of the digital domain of audio. The whole issue of gain sharing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's why yes, spend the money for a splitter so that you have separate head amps. Okay, and this is a big ass corporate show. Fortunately, the TD is a very good friend of mine, so he knew that the fuck up that happened. He gave me, like you said, Eric, the respect of understanding that no, this isn't his screw up. Something's going on. Okay, so
but he's gonna save it.
No, he has to do his thing. But we're going up. We are blah blah blah. The last thing we've done is played, and everyone's signed off on the level of the walk-in music when we come back from our 20-minute dinner break. 20 minutes. Okay, everyone's
luxury.
No, but I made sure there's please, I want to know that we can just come in here. You hit go. Everyone's happy. Levels are good to go, and because we had shit to do while the walk-in was playing. Anyways, we go. 20 minutes, remember that. And go.
Yep.
Tony, why aren't we going? And go. It is. No, we're not.
It's gone.
So everything, okay? Everything's gone. And but instantly I go, okay, fuck it. I go, by the time the speaker gets to the podium, I guarantee it'll be there. So sure enough, I'm on the fly, dialing in shit. Don't know what, he goes, what happened? I go, I don't know. Mike, anyways, I'm sorry, I'll just say Mike. I'm glad I didn't say last names. I don't want to name names. Anyways,
I thought you were talking about the microphone.
Thank you. Anyways, the TD from the company watching this, he knows that everything was working 100%. So you're going, what happened? I go, I don't know, man. So instantly strikes. A band is about to start with a very serious headliner. I'm dialing in. As she hits the mic, I'm there because I remembered my settings, and the way I do stuff, I can get away with a lot of stuff as long as I get the game. Anyways, fine. Okay, we get that one going. Next scene. So it goes that to a video roll. Next artist comes up. I got no inputs anymore. Again. 3 times it happens. Then I get a call from the monitor desk on the comm going,
I was there on that show. I just recalled that now. I was on that show. I was doing video on that one.
Yes, you were.
I remember now.
He goes, I get the call from the monitor desk to say, oh, sorry, man, the way I built the show, I built it a new file, not a snapshot for every.
Yep.
So
and every time he loaded, you went out.
Yes.
Nice.
Because we chose to let monitors be the master.
Ooh.
Well, monitors generally need more drive.
Did you let him? Did you let his mama know where you buried the body?
Well, let's say other people did.
He's got people for that.
Did eventually,
But Vanz, there's a situation where I'm recalling my show. All the names are there.
Yeah. And you're like, what?
But nothing else.
Yeah.
But nothing else.
Yeah. I learned that whole gain sharing thing, that's got to stop. Like you said,
Well,
just buy the splitter. It's tried and true. We've used it for years. Just don't do that.
Make it happen,
yourself, man. It's such a pain in the ass.
Ooh, dude. As if it had not been for the event producer being a really good friend of mine, and knowing that I just didn't screw up, there was something going on.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 times, man, the guy recalled the scene, and then finally goes, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you at the dinner break that I built my show this way."
What, incorrectly?
And what's even worse,
Were
without
you doing 3 different
it.
shows? You need to load another whole show? You're doing 3 different shows?
He created
That's
a
dumb.
new show file for every artist. So there was 9 artists.
Wow. Can't find good help
normally
these
that
days,
wouldn't
man.
be a problem. If you weren't gain sharing, that wouldn't be a problem. You can do whatever.
And if you know, because then I have to
exactly.
I have to put everything in mute safe.
Yeah.
Right, channel, right, so a recall safe, recall safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but there's the things that, we get talking, there's the little things of digital that now you have to start adding in things depending on the console, the depth of the console, the amount of control the console offers you. And I'm not even saying a console, really, the Surface. Or as people at DigiDesign hate me for, when I used to send them letters about the giant mouse.
Right. Hey, at least your board didn't have push to erect on it.
True.
Like the grandma.
Oh, come on! I know you cried when they moved the button, when they removed that button.
No, because the Mod 2 they came up with electronically. So you just hold Ma on the up and down arrows, and it comes up and down automatically.
Yeah, but that push to erect button, come on.
Yeah,
just
that
labeling
that feature.
We could all use that
gets
now.
me chicks.
You know what?
I get chicks because of that.
That's probably a good place for us to shut it down.
Yeah.
I got way too much compression on my beer. I've overcompressed it.
All right.
Okay, so guys, that was a fun round.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes.
Even if it's only the 4 of us, it's really enjoyable chatting.
Well, what happened to Steve?
Steve is helping his sister with some family issues.
He's dead to us.
Oh, okay.
So he couldn't make it, unfortunately. And this is a council of elders here, so we did our own little thing.
Yeah, he's not old enough. He's only in his 40s.
Exactly. He doesn't have enough years under his belt on the road to be sitting with us grown-ups yet.
Well, like the last time he if he considers me a mentor, almost, because I showed Steve a few things back when he was green. He's like, so if he thinks I'm a mentor, then he's definitely not one of us.
Yeah, well, that's all fair. It needs all kinds, right? So
we love them.
And if we don't think that we learn stuff from the kids coming up, we do.
Oh my God,
we better, or else we're screwed.
Or we're.
I totally have, man. And I never assume I know everything. You know what? You get knowledge from the least likely places, man. Like somebody totally new. And it's like, what are you doing? I'm doing this. It's like, wow, I never thought about doing it that way. You can always learn.
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
That's it, exactly. You never know.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end the show, right? You never know where you're going to get knowledge from.
Eric, like I said in the first thing, though, please remember, unplug stuff before you choose to use your teeth to strip some wires.
Always.
Okay, and that's from the lands of ones and zeros. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. This was your Council of Elders on Grumpy Roadie's Shop Talk, and see you next week again when Steve will be back from the Netherlands or wherever he is. Take care, guys.